Looks like everything's set up and we're ready to go. So let's get the show underway. I did want to mention that there's plenty of stuff at the front desk in case you didn't get your EditShare hat, your EditShare socks on the way in. That's one of the benefits of being here in person. Or the EditShare multi-purpose mouse mat. They're all there for those people that make sure you grab your stuff on the way out. To begin with, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respects to the elders both past and present. Hello and welcome to the seminar. Welcome to those here at the screening room and to those joining us via the live stream. On behalf of Digistore, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedules to be with us today. My name is Mark Richards and I'm the Marketing Manager for Digistore. We're excited to be here with you today, but before we get underway, I'll cover off a couple of items of housekeeping just so that everyone can get the most out of the event. The event has been ably supported by two organisations that I wanted to mention. The live streaming services and remote audience experience is being managed by Create Engage. If you need to reach and engage a remote audience for any form of presentation, I can't recommend Luke and his team highly enough. Create Engage work closely with audiovisual events to manage the sound and lighting, projection, networking, patching in of remote presenters, and every other aspect of the AV. Throughout the show, we encourage you to submit questions. If you're here in the room, you can use the QR code that you see on the screen there, or the URL to access a web page to submit questions via your phone or other device. If you're watching the live stream, there's a panel at the bottom of the live stream that lets you submit questions there in the Ask a Question panel. Although we may not get to all the questions live during the presentation, there will be some Q&A time and we'll check in with the questions and the presenters will be available to respond to those. The questions are also recorded, so if we can't get back to you within the presentation, we'll make sure we do so after the show. If everything works as planned, the webinar will be recorded and a link to view on demand will be sent to everyone once we've prepared and uploaded the video. So first off, let me introduce Digistore. The year 2020 marked Digistore's 30th year in business. We've just announced that we've teamed up with Videocraft, which is great news for our customers. We're now able to combine the resources of both Digistore and Videocraft to deliver a broader range of solutions more effectively and to support you better. So that's been exciting news for us, and I wanted to make sure that I mentioned it here today. Digistore addresses a wide range of application areas across many industries. I've summarised here some of the areas we address, which will be relevant to the audience today, but it's just the tip of the iceberg, so make sure you talk to us about your requirements moving forward. We also work with a range of leading vendors. Our close working relationship with vendor partners means that we can utilise their staff and resources to work with us on solutions for your needs. Here's just a few of the relevant vendors that we work with that I've displayed here. Of course, we can't answer all the questions or address all specific workflow requirements for everyone in this one session, so I'd encourage you to contact your Digistore account manager or Digistore generally so that we can help you further. And there's all the contact details to get in touch. You can email the general email, you can contact us via the website, or just reply to any of the emails that I've sent out inviting or reminding you about the seminar, and I'll make sure that we get back to you with any help that you may need. Look out for the event follow-up email with further information as well as the recording link. So to the seminar. Over the last couple of years, the pandemic has accelerated the development and adoption of new technologies and workflows, enabling local and remote teams working with dispersed media files. These workflows leverage the public internet along with cloud storage and compute. At the same time, Adobe has developed tools to enable and simplify teams working on projects of any complexity. This, combined with Adobe's open approach to integration and with other suppliers such as EditShare, has made possible workflows that can be applied in innovative ways in order to provide greater productivity, lower cost, and perhaps most importantly, flexibility for teams working in production and post. In other words, to provide content velocity. We're excited to bring you this seminar to explore these particular solutions. I'd like to introduce Digistore's guest presenters today. Tamesh from EditShare has travelled from Hungary. I do apologise for saying he travelled from the UK on the website and in various other communications, but having met him in person, I find he's from Hungary. To be with us, and I'm excited to be able to have a guest of his calibre to share his insights with you. Paul Hayes and Chris Anderson are also from EditShare, and both work closely with us locally when providing solutions to our customers. John Barry is able to provide clear information of Adobe's tools and how they work and how they are applied for customers in our region. John is unable to travel at this time, so we've actually patched him in remotely, and with a bit of luck, he should be with us now. Say hi, John.
Hi, John.
So,
hi, everybody.
So just he's listening to every word. So whatever you say, be careful what you say about Adobe here. John you may not be able to see him the whole time, but he's there participating and live in our event. Thank you, John. You can fade away now. There you go. So we're very pleased to have these presenters as they bring a wealth of experience to the seminar, not only from a product and technical implementation point of view, but also from a real-world production perspective, and that's really what we want to focus on. Okay, so let's have a look at today's agenda. We've combined short presentations along with demonstrations to outline real-world challenges and describe what each of those products do and how they can be integrated to provide workflow solutions. We'll check if any questions midway through and give you a chance to stretch your legs while we answer any submitted questions. And at the conclusions of the presentation, there'll be some time left for Q&A with all the presenters. So as I mentioned before, please submit your questions. We'll get to them and everyone will get a chance to answer them. We'll get a chance to get all the presenters to answer them. So it now gives me great pleasure to introduce our first presenter, Tamesh from EditShare. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Let me just see if I can start the presentation. We can cut over.
Switch projection.
In the meantime, I would also like to welcome everybody on behalf of EditShare. It's a pleasure to be here in person. This is my first business trip in 2 years, and actually this is the farthest I've ever come. So maybe New Zealand is a little bit further away, but I was thinking this is the farthest I can ever go from my home. So I found the city is fantastic. It's amazing. You have everything that you can dream of. So it's really great to be here. And thanks so much for coming in person. And I also like to thank everybody who's joining us through the live stream. Although these chairs actually might be just as comfy as your sofa at home. So I like to talk about the importance of openness and why is it important for us? Why does it give us how does it give us more flexibility in the media creation landscape? I'm a VP of Business Development for EditShare. I've been in the broadcast industry for about 25 years, plus maybe a little bit, and I have an engineering and a marketing background as well. So all throughout my career in media and entertainment, I really try to pay close attention to the trends we can detect, the technology trends, and also the operational or kind of the trends of society that shape the tools that we need to use in order to create media efficiently. So EditShare has been around for over 16 years now. We exist to simplify storytelling. And I'd just like to give you a really quick overview of who we are and what we do. And later on, with the help of Chris and Paul, you can dive in a lot deeper in the details. So what we do is develop tools for creatives to enable them to use any kind of software systems or creative tools that they like to create media. We offer a powerful media management system, which is called Flow. It's in the heart of our media workflow. We also have our own unique media optimized storage architecture, which is called EFS, the EditShare file system. Both of these can be deployed on-premise, which was sort of the classical way, of course, and in the cloud, and anywhere in between. We like to say anywhere because there are various degrees of hybridness that is required by our customers worldwide. So we are ready to customize the deployment accordingly. We also have open APIs, and sometimes we categorize them as separate products because they're so important to what we do. Openness is the heart of our activities or our development, and we sometimes call ourselves ruthlessly open, meaning that we don't want to stick to our own solutions. We offer a variety of tools, but if you find that for one particular task, maybe there is another third-party technology that would fit your workflow better, we'll do everything we can to help you use that tool instead of our own tool, if that is the requirement. One of the groundbreaking developments of the last couple of years is seamless proxy editing. This is an innovation around combining object storage and block storage in the cloud, or actually we can extend that to a hybrid environment as well. I'm going to talk just a little bit more about that later on. Combining these two actually earned us an Emmy award that we received just a couple of weeks ago. But also the workflow automation is an important part of our story, where we take repetitive tasks that you can program and we can create automated workflows, and that would help you create your media much faster. I also like to mention we are NLE agnostic. However, and there is a reason why we have Premiere on this diagram. Throughout the years, we have been working with many vendors in the NLE community. You know that there are lots of solutions out there. We have our own called Flow Story, which is based on the Lightworks framework. But we found that Adobe is particularly open, and they enable, through their open APIs, integration to other media asset management systems or storage systems. So Adobe became our strongest strategic ally in creating a unified media workflow. With that, I'd just like to highlight that the Emmy Award we received is in recognition of our innovation around cloud enablement and remote editing and project management. And we hopefully this is not the first Emmy we actually received. I think this is now probably the third-ish, somewhere there. So we are happy to be still in the forefront of innovation around media and entertainment. Okay, so what are open systems and why are they important to us? I've been around the broadcast business for a long time. I think some of you might have been as well. And broadcast has evolved from closed systems. We all had our walled garden of NLE, or before that was not even an NLE, okay? But it was like tape-based stuff. And the only thing we had interconnecting them was like almost the video cable, right? We had big challenges of flying metadata around. I remember the time when metadata became the buzzword. You know, everyone was talking about the metadata, not just the video content itself. So we have evolved from that closed system approach. And the times when I remember people saying that, no one got fired for buying and your favorite broadcast vendor, I think those times are gone. I think you need to be more future-looking and more flexible in your choice of technology. So, how do we define openness? So this open system is one that is built to a set of principles, rigorously enforced, that can work with other manufacturers' products and services without detrimentally impacting the performance of the overall system. So it's not just about providing an interface, but making sure you can use those interfaces in a practical and efficient way. There are closed systems around that are pretty good at what they do. I think a good example is Apple. I'm sure many of you use Apple technology. Your iPhones, they're great for what they offer inside their ecosystem. But if you happen to have a need to go outside the Apple ecosystem, you might find you hit their limitations and boundaries pretty quickly. Now, what are those limitations? Well, I think a very obvious one is if you would like to go to the cloud. We talk to companies who are now cloud first, where up until actually very recently, macOS was just not available on the cloud. It was either Linux or Windows, so there was no other choice. And Apple is still very much behind in that regard in cloud or virtualization technologies. So what is driving openness? I think it's flexibility. It's the need for flexibility in today's quickly changing environment. If you think back just a few years, well, it was maybe more than just a few years, but a single event offshore Japan caused a mayhem in the tape-based world. You remember when that tape factory got destroyed and suddenly the price of tapes were going like 5 times up. It was an incredible time. Partly maybe we can thank the rapid evolution of file-based workflows, we can thank the tsunami, because that really kicked us into the digital age and the file-based age. But similarly, if you just think back 2 years ago, I didn't know what Zoom is. Well, 2 years ago maybe I already knew, but like 2.5, it was an unknown company to me. And now Zooming is even part of our vocabulary, and I spend my time on Zoom like maybe 7 hours a day if I'm not traveling. So I'm so happy to be traveling now. So the success of Zoom was partly based on their scalability, right, and their openness. I will talk about a specific example we had with an educational institution in the US who leveraged the open APIs of Zoom and Flow, our MEM system, to actually create an end-to-end workflow. So I think the best way to find openness is to look at how a specific vendor would enable to work with their own competition. So how much they're trying to break down the walls to competition rather than building them up. Openness for remote production is essential. The internet itself is one of the most successful open systems that I think that has existed so far, with HTTP and with JavaScript and all the connected technologies. And you need to embrace those, because we do not have the walled gardens anymore. We have not like a one-size-fits-all solution. There's no one single vendor that can fulfill the complex requirements in the media and entertainment world of creation anymore. And probably no proprietary system can cope with the rate of change and today's technology challenges. We at EditShare, we like to look at the requirement and then say, well, okay, this customer needs standards conversion. That's great. Well, we have a transcoding framework, but actually we do not want to optimize our system to be a standards converter with the frame blending and interpolation and stuff like that, because the companies out there who already do that actually much better. So why don't we use their technology, integrate them into our workflow, and then the customer has the best of both. They have our sleek workflow design, and they have the best technology they can get for that specific workflow step in their creation process. So one of the examples of openness and how we migrated our technology to an even more open architecture is how we approach the cloud. AWS is also a very important strategic partner for us, although in China we do work with AliCloud and Tencent Cloud as well, under the umbrella of openness, of course. But AWS has done a lot of work to enable media workflows to migrate into the cloud. So as you can see here, we have Amazon S3, we have Amazon EBS, which are two different storage technologies that are available in AWS. So S3 is the simple storage service, which is auto scaling, so you always only pay for what you use. Well, if you just use 1 terabyte, you pay 1 terabyte. If you use 100, you pay for 100. EBS is the elastic block storage, which is very fast, but it behaves much like a hard drive. So you buy 10 terabytes, and it doesn't matter if you use just a fraction of it, you pay for the 10 terabytes. The problem with S3 is that the latency is unpredictable and most of the time pretty high, so you cannot really use it to directly mount to an editing workstation. And the block storage is very expensive. So it would be a good idea to combine the benefits of these two and have the best of both worlds. And this is exactly what our EFS file system does when running in the cloud. So we used EC2 compute instances to run our storage layer, the metadata controller, and the media asset management database flow. And GPU instances are used to deploy the NLE workstation. And EFS presents both S3 and EBS presents these storage architectures to the workstation, and the workstation doesn't care, doesn't know which storage it actually goes to for certain tasks, because EFS takes care of routing the traffic in an ideal way between those two technologies. So if you want to know more about this, I'm sure we're happy to talk and discuss how that works in practice. This is what we call seamless proxy editing. So you have access to proxy material based on the block storage and high resolution material based on the object storage at the same time. And from the NLE, you can choose when you want to see either of them. Here you can see that we can deploy an NLE system in the cloud on a virtual machine. Adobe Premiere, for example. We have our own flow panel inside Premiere, which you're going to see. And in this particular example, we connect to that workstation through PC over IP technology, a really highly optimized remote desktop solution called Teradici. In this other example, just in the name of openness, we pictured a DaVinci Resolve, which might be a locally licensed instance, or like running on your laptop or your workstation at home, and you can still connect to the cloud-based media asset management system and get access to a cloud-based material we store in AWS. Also, third-party applications are available. We always look at technologies we can leverage on the edges of our workflow. So for ingest or for playout or distribution, we have these third parties that can connect into Flow and just round off the workflow. So this is the architecture. Let's see how the workflow itself looks like. So these elements have been around for a long time, ingest, editing, review and approve, and then publishing. This is the sort of the generic diagram, and then we can turn this to a specific example. We can go and I'm gonna show you how a specific large educational institution in the US used our technology. I talked about Zoom, and about a year and a half ago, they started to have all the lectures on Zoom remotely. And Zoom allows you to record the lectures, of course, the different cameras, the presentation screen itself. And we allowed through the Zoom Open API and through the Flow Open API, we just access those recordings. We bring them into Flow automatically as they become available, and we also import the metadata that's available for those video files. So in Zoom you have a chat window, and you can put messages in the chat which are actually time-stamped. So we take those time-stamped metadata and we make them available as markers in the video files. And we can also track data like the name of the presenter or the title of the lecture, and we can take that automatically from Zoom. You don't have to worry about typing in and making spelling mistakes. So once you have the material in Flow, we make it available. Assistant editors for logging, you can access it through Airflow user interface, and you can select shots. You can top and tail. You can trim off the media as you wish, and then Adobe Premiere is used to actually finish the sequence, and with graphics and color grading if necessary. Then you can again reach back to Flow for review and approve. Your remote producers or approvers can actually review the material. They can give some guidance of how to change it. And then at the end of the day, we have a distribution platform, this customer using Wistia. And the metadata that we actually imported from Zoom, like the presenter name or the chapters in the chat, we can all export to Wistia as well. So the metadata flows right through the production process. That's just an example of how an open architecture would enable you to use different tools and integrate them together. So, as a closing thought, I'm pretty sure that in the next 2 to 3 years, most of you will face a purchasing decision. So how would you tell whether the vendor you'd like to select is open? Well, the best way is to see how they encourage interaction or integration with their competitors. So I'd like to think that EditShare is beating the path in that regard, and we work together with lots of our competition. And we like to think that this is the time for collaboration rather than fighting each other. So thank you very much. This is the end of my little overview. And I'd like to ask Chris and Paul to continue. Thank you.
So while Chris is putting this together, just want to welcome you again, just to tell who I am and who is Chris. We are local people in Australia. I'm Paul Hayes. I've been here with EditShare for a hell of a long time, had a little sabbatical at Digistore for about 6 months. So that's how I know these guys, but I've been working with Digistore probably since 2008 in terms of EditShare. So we know well they've been deploying a lot of our systems over the years, so we have every faith they can look after you. Chris is pre-sales engineer. He's new to us, but he's based in Sydney. And he obviously does a lot of our solution designs in conjunction with a large team in the region and the world, and also provides a little bit of, I guess, hands-on front first-person support, I guess is the way of putting it. So look, also I wanted to say just how good it is to see real people instead of screens of Zoom, which we've been sort of stuck in our own home offices like the rest of you guys for the last 2 years. And in fact, I only met Tomas face-to-face for the first time last Monday, and we've been working together for 2 years. So I'm sure it's similar in other companies at the moment. So, well, look, the only other thing I was going to say too is we had Met Expo last week, and we just attended I guess we had a small little pod there on somebody's stand, but it was, again, the buzz of the show was so good to see all the industry people getting together and actually talking, and it was a really good buzz. I sort of encourage, and I actually applaud you to come out here. Encourage it to where we can. If we can get together, it's really making a positive impact on the industry, I think. So what we're going to do is quickly go back to some of the basics of who EditShare is for the people who may not have ever talked to us before. What we do in terms of some of the product, some of the really basic stuff. Sorry if you've already got our system, but we're going to go through some of the underlying technologies and then how they grow into something as big as a cloud-based solution. And we'll do that in the first session. We're also going to, after that, maybe after some questions, Chris and John are going to do a little show, and it's going to be quite unique. Unique for us is that what's happening is John is, of course, in Melbourne. He's actually on a boat. He's connecting via 4G or 5G from his laptop. He's connecting to an AWS EFSV instance in the cloud, which is actually currently in Singapore.
Yep.
And Chris is also going to collaborate with him. So just to show you some of the tools that we actually can use together. And so, nothing. What could go wrong with that? Nothing, right? Nothing. It's fine. Well, our first session went really well, so let's hope we can repeat it. So just going back to the basics, who EditShare, we're about simplifying storytelling. We make tools for collaboration, for storing the content safely, because your media is valuable. You don't want to have to go back and do reshoots or whatever. As big as storage as you want, we can handle that. We've got a 5.5 petabyte system in Sydney, as an example. So that's an example of, I'm sure not many people will get to that size in the near future. The other thing is about security. You want to make sure that your content's safe, and we've got some tools built in to help you monitor the system to keep it as safe as possible, I guess. And, Tamasha's already mentioned about flow, but we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail. But effectively, we have a suite of asset management tools to help you manage and organise content and then deliver it, even just for the production workflow onto other devices. So you're not just stuck in your office or your facility. You are actually able to move out and produce content externally. And of course, the big question we get a lot is about archive, and of course we've got some solutions that we'll talk about today in archive. Yes, as we've discussed already, we're in the cloud. We're already there. So when you're ready to move to the cloud, if not already ready. If you're not already in the cloud, we can help you move there because we are already there. And we've worked around the world with some really big names already in the market. So we'd love to add your name. At the end of the day, if you win, we win. We're not a company that's fly-by-nighter. As I said, I've been working at EditShare effectively since 2005, 2006. Been around a long time, lots of systems, and we are in for the long haul. So if you win, we win. So here's the basics. I'll just go through these very quickly. You'll hear us talk about EFS. That means EditShare File System. It's a software that has been developed by EditShare. It's put onto storage servers. The hardware we run these days, we ship on HPE hardware. So you can leverage HPE's global network of, warranty, repairs and support in terms of hardware. And we, of course, handle the software. What's the claim to fame for this versus other hardware? Well, we'll show you some of the features, but look, at the end of the day, resilience and performance, and then the ability to expand. So when I say resilience, yes, people have RAID-protected hardware, but we take it a step further with high availability designs, which means that there's no single point of failure. And when it comes to performance, everybody can quote a figure of maximum bandwidths, but we actually work in what you do, which is streams of video. So we quote in terms of how many streams, at what resolution can our system support. So you know that if you buy a system that's designed for a particular workflow, it's going to do it and it's not going to fall over on you. Okay. And then expansion, everybody's trying to expand their storage. And I used the example where we had a customer 2 years ago, bought, I think it was 48 terabytes. Following year, they had to bolt on another 48 terabytes. Third year, I said, I think you should look at a design with some high availability. And we actually went to a multi-node system with better protection on that, so that they can then expand far easier. All right, so Flow, we mentioned, it's asset management. We'll just show you some of those things. I don't need to really go on over this again. It's a suite of tools, and they're designed to help you manage the content. Tomash has gone through some of our EFSV solutions as well, and we'll actually show you that, as I mentioned, with John and Chris doing their little show. And I just want to touch on this again, just so that we can picture it in our mind that there's many ways that we can handle remote workflows these days. It can be as simple as providing proxy files to an NLE via Airflow, which is our flow asset manager, but we can take it all the way through to a combination of ingesting by upload to cloud or ingesting directly to cloud, using virtual workstations in the cloud, which are connected to through technologies such as PCI over IP, or it could be as simple as using a tablet and accessing the content from the cloud or a remote facility. And there's a lot of partners. As with openness comes a lot of partners. We're going to talk about MoveIt, who do a product called Helmet. And it's actually a very sophisticated asset manager. Well, sorry, it's called project management, really. I think is its real core claim to fame. We'll see why, and we'll talk about that. But I just thought I'd also mention that we now are doing UHD ingests, from multiple input sources with a product called CineDeck. And the CineDeck can integrate into our workflows as well. But there's plenty more things plenty more partners. Now, this is what's going to be different. Now, I don't want to sit here and just go product, benefit. I want to turn it around a little bit for people that need to understand why somebody would choose an EditShare system. We're going to look at the 8 common questions that come up, we get all the time, and how we resolve. So the 8 common, problems that people come to vendors like EditShare and Digistore to resolve. And we're just going to show you at the same time, Chris is going to help me out and point to some parts of our software. Instead of doing a full demo, which I'd encourage you one day, if you need something really in depth, to come and talk to us. Let's not put you to sleep today. Let's just go over some of the high-level stuff and show you why you would be talking to a company like EditShare. Question number 1 goes something like this. I've used some generic IT storage. Shared storage has been around for a while, so they've obviously used something, but need to upgrade it now, or I want to increase the capacity, or it's too slow because we're now doing XYZ codec. So what are we going to? What's the reason that I'd buy an EditShare solution? So first of all, we mentioned EFS file system, so I'm just going to show you, Chris is going to show EFS Control, which is the management solution for storage. It's web control panel. At the end of the day, you want to carve up large amounts of storage into things we call media spaces. Media spaces are like folders in the storage that you assign people's access to, so that you don't just give somebody terabytes and terabytes of space and let them self-manage it, which normally means a big mess very quickly. And if you worry, a lot of our customers say, we're always running out of storage, and it's because it's unmanaged. At the end of the day, they don't manage the storage. So we give you the tools to manage it. At the end of the day, after making media spaces, you apply users.
Users to groups.
And we have integrations for things like Active Directory and others, of course, for authentication. So that's all built in. As I said, this is going to be high level. We can delve into that. But after we've made media spaces, a user is assigned. The user, on their Mac, Windows, or Linux, has an application called EditShare Connect. And that is a drive mounting tool, so they don't have to understand how to map drives or go to IP addresses. Basically log in with their username and password, and the drives are mapped. Okay, and then they appear just like any normal mapped network drive in the NLE or in the other creative application. Very simply. So again, now the other big difference between generic IT storage will be, as I mentioned, performance. And of course, we're not a push-pull storage, we're edit in place, meaning when you hit play on a file, it's playing from the server, it's not being copied to the local machine. You don't want to move files around, you end up with copies, etc., etc. So that's pretty basic. If you're in this industry for a while, that's the basics, but I want to make sure that we understand that underlying everything we do is management of storage. All right, so once we've done that, the question always comes up. This is question 2. How do I once I put all my assets in the storage, Chris, once I put all my assets in the storage, how safe is it from equipment failure?
Well, RAID 6 for each of the RAID chassis, the hardware RAID, and then depending on the configuration, we can do adding storage goals to give you extra redundancy. So if I show
While you're doing that slide, when we're just doing a simple single server, we'll use simple hardware RAID because it gives us maximum performance. When we want to go to very large scale solutions, we have part of our file system is the ability to use, a mathematical equation called XOR, which actually acts like RAIDs across multiple servers. So what we're actually doing, I'll get the slide up, is carving up files into multiple chunks and spread them across multiple servers. Why do we do this? We have normally 2 or 3 chunks, and we can change the XOR algorithm depending on the performance requirements and the size. And we do actually restrict it generally to a certain number of chunks. There is a chunk of parity data, which is like RAID, which allows you to assemble the data if one of the main chunks is missing. So in this sort of arrangement, a complete server can fail, and to the operators, they wouldn't notice any difference. Okay, so that's the basics of XOR. There's more to it, but that's the basics. Effectively, when a complete server or a network connection goes off that server or the power goes out to that server, the technology called Swift Read allows the data to be reassembled from the parity data plus a file chunk as fast as it would if it was reading the normal file. Okay, we won't delve any more. We're already putting somebody to sleep there, I think. Okay, now one other comment I'd make too, there's, you probably think, oh, well, who's using this? In Australia, there's 3 playout centres for broadcast television. One of them, all the storage they use, including their DR centre, is using EditShare file system. Okay, that's some major reliability needs, 24/7 playout for, I think it's about 300 channels they're up to. Okay. Right, next, security. We're talking about security. We do get the question that pops up quite a bit. I've heard that Australian post-production companies experience ransomware attacks, and it has happened. I think it was 2 in Sydney about 2 years ago. And one of them had their pretty well every one of their, I think, Windows and their other generic NASs locked down for ransomware. So, how safe is EditShare? Now, interestingly, one of those facilities had an EditShare as well, and it wasn't touched. I don't know whether it was luck or good management, but as a side issue, we have a tool built into our solution called file auditing. It's in all of our storage servers. This is an interesting one for many reasons. One, it's been designed to allow administrators to keep an eye on exactly what's going on the storage server. By that I mean the system logs every touch of the file system. Every write, every read, every move, every copy, every delete, and every file rename. I think there's more, but that's the things that you might come across in production. So for the security side of it, if an administrator comes in and notices that there's repeated and probably unsuccessful at first login attempts from a particular IP address, they know they've got a problem. That's the example of what could be filtered. The other thing would be, why is XYZ user logging in at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning or Monday morning? They're on holidays. What's going on here? There's something going on. So this is the sort of things that are actually able to be filtered and seen. But the other thing which is really, really handy, we found in the general day-to-day, is sometimes the vendor of the file system gets blamed for deletion of files, which the file system can't delete itself unless there's some major problems, but it can't delete files. But we can actually go in and look for deletes, and we can actually tell you who did it and when. And the other thing that happens a lot is people rename files and then they think they've deleted it or they can't find it. So this will actually log file renames. So that's quite a handy tool, and it's built in. We have a very large system in a broadcaster in Japan, and they put in very large SSD drives just for the logging information because they wanted to have 3 years of auditing trail. So because it was one of their customers had a viral attack, I can't remember exactly what happened, a breach of security, but it took them 2 years to figure it out. It had actually happened. So they wanted to have 3 years of auditing trail to go back and find out. Okay. So let's move on. Okay, so this one's just typical, is about people can't find files on their system because they don't have an asset manager. So they're saying it's getting really difficult to find the content. We need a MAM. What does EditShare offer? So we have Flow. We mentioned Flow is a suite of software tools to manage your assets. The way it works, first of all, is you have a storage server. Normally, primarily, it's our storage server. We can look at other servers because we're open. And it scans the storage and makes database entries. If it's a video file, and it's one of the 749 codecs we support, it will make a proxy video file, a lower res version of that file. Why do we have a proxy file? There's many reasons. One of them is if you're searching through content, it's far easier for a file system to find and open a file that's made a proxy than instead of high resolution. Secondly, the proxy files are produced in web-friendly streaming formats. It allows you to then have access of those files, not only away from the workstation in the editing suite, but in another country, for instance. So we have that ability to serve up all the content with the metadata that comes from the file, plus the proxy file anywhere in the world. Of course, the metadata which comes with the file is normally the file name, creation date, and that's about it. Then we have customized templates to allow you to log files with your own template of metadata. So you might have your own schema for perhaps archive, or another one for a particular production content. So we give users access to templates, which you can make up. They're very easy to make up. And then you can actually use that custom metadata. Because then you have advanced searching to find based on those parameters that you've logged on the files. Is there anything we have to do? I forget now.
Oh, I was going to...
You were going to show us exactly...
Yeah, so they were just doing that in the background. I don't know if you were watching what I did. So I can just browse my storage. Now, this is not just my EditShare storage. This is all the storage I've configured to be accessible for Flow. So I've got some cloud storage here, ABC S3, APAC. So how you might normally work remotely, so this is in a browser. I'm running it against a VM on my machine at the moment. So you point a browser to the server. I've got a representation of my content in proxy files. And what I might do is I might create a project, which is sort of a logical grouping of my material I want to work on. And I can just copy my clips here. I can create subclips, create sequences. And a workflow might be that I want to assemble a shots list, and then I want to send that off to a craft editor to have some finishing, or have it being picked up and finished off there. So what I can do, I just create a sequence, which I did here. I can just add clips by drag and dropping them. I can add subclips, and I can change the order. I can get rid of these from here. Now, this sequence is available to all the other Flow applications as well. So someone else can pick this up in Airflow and continue with it. They can pick it up in our craft editor, which is Flow Story. What I'm going to show is importing this proxy sequence into a craft editor. So I'm going to launch Premiere Pro. I'm going to add in the EditShare panel. And the panel allows me to import material, both high res and low res. It allows me to publish my timeline back to Flow for further review, or to publish it to a finished location to be distributed. And it allows me to relink content, and that's something we're going to see later when I'm working with John, and we're both kind of simulating a remote workflow. So I'm just going to go into my projects, and I had the Airflow project I created earlier, and I added a sequence in there, and I called it Chris's cut list. Now I'm going to import that sequence, and you'll notice here I have the option to import the high res, because I'm working as I would be on-prem, or to not bring the high res in at all, or to bring in the proxy, or to bring in both. I'm going to bring in both. And this gives me the ability now to switch between proxy and high-res workflows. With one video track, it's not such a big deal, but if I had half a dozen tracks of 4K, I might find it easier to work in the proxy world than in the high-res. So look, I'll pretty much leave that there. I'll just show you the two properties. So here we have the proxy media, and here we have the high-res media. So look, I'll leave that there. We're going to carry on this kind of workflow a little bit later when we go into our remote session.
And the one thing about the panel to notice is that it's basically using the Flow API to access the flow features. So you're getting pretty much the same features that you see in Airflow that would be applicable in a panel for import, export, upload, download, etc. So that's what the panel is about. And we have one for Resolve as well, just for anybody that's doing a bit of color grading on Resolve. Okay, getting towards it, we're getting through there. Archiving. So the question we get a lot is, I'm looking for an archive for my video projects. They've probably got content on disk, possibly on tape, as in LTO tape. What's the solutions that we offer? Well, we do offer, of course, a lower cost spinning disk solution. If you want to backup, it's more backup than archive, I guess, because it is a spinning disk solution. We can integrate with tape libraries. We also work with third-party tape management systems. But what's quite popular, and I think for long-term is worth looking at, is actually cloud storage at the end of the day. And with Flow, you can connect directly to many of the the archive or the object storage, S3 style storage vendors. So we support currently out of the box, obviously AWS, but things like Azure, Backblaze, Wasabi. So Chris is showing
it's all here, yeah. All this Huawei, no one's using.
Yep. All right. So at the end of the day, you put in your credentials. You have an account. Put your credentials in, and they map, and then they're visible.
And then they're visible here in Flow, and visible to all the Flow applications. So then we can start doing things like automations, which we're going to come to a little bit later. But I can look at my content. And this content's living up in Wasabi. It's also living everywhere. This particular bit of content. I think I have.
So you've got multiple copies.
10 copies of it everywhere. Now, everywhere that's orange is a location I've defined as an archive location. So I've archived it to S3, Wasabi, Glacier, and it's all over the place.
And it's got big pockets.
I need a bit of a clean up in there.
All right, so that's the point. So yes, we can handle archive solutions to that sort of level. Okay, and funny you should mention automation because it's next.
How have I known that?
I've got to say, we haven't done any presentations for 2 years, so cut us some slack, all right? Automation. Let's go back to it. So obviously teams can spend a lot of time these days. We get this question a lot, saying we've got a lot of tasks that we do every day, and things like transcoding or moving files around and cleaning up. Can we automate this? We have a tool built into Flow Automation. It's actually part of the package, and in some of the license levels it's just included. So what Flow Automation does is a template-based workflow automator. And a automator has to have a few simple elements. And what we're seeing here is the diagrams of a workflow. Normally a workflow will have a start point, a trigger. What is the trigger? It will be a Dropbox maybe a metadata change. Somebody might tick a box or have a pull-down selection, or it could be a repeating job that happens at the same time of the day, or it repeats every hour. So that's trigger, labouring the point, but that's the trigger. And then we have tasks, and the tasks can, Chris has got them listed down there, but there's copy, transcode, etc., etc. And then output, the output side of it might be deliver to somewhere, to the cloud, could be delivered to another server using F2P. And it could be just send a notification or email that the metadata has changed or a file has arrived. Okay?
Yep.
Show us the complex
Okay,
automation.
so this is the work one. This looks like it's just going
Simple
and
one.
copying to simple one off to Glacier. And if we look at something, we have actually stripped a little bit from this, but this was something for a customer. They have content coming into the facility. It gets dropped into a watch folder. They want metadata, several fields automatically updated. We put a bit of a delay in there. That's because we're creating some proxies and things in the background. And then what they're doing is they're copying that high-res item from the watch folder into its final location. And then they are sending us an email notification that that's all done okay. Now, if something goes wrong, like if the proxy creation fails, it gets moved to another location, so it can have some manual intervention from an operator.
Why a proxy? Why would a proxy file fail? Is because we've had people put in weird video formats, or they're not even video.
Not even a video file.
So it will fail immediately, the job.
And then the user will find that strange text file in the video folder and know why they've got an error in the system.
So you normally, you might have thought you put the right file in there, but it's good to have some of these sort of capabilities. But one of the other really interesting things is that we have third-party integrations with some AI, artificial intelligence companies. And these are, again, we've already done some partnerships with some companies here. One that we see, it's a very big need in many genres of production, is transcription. Transcription will make a text transcript from reading the audio, listening to the audio file, I guess, effectively. And we have an integration with a product called Openness. So with automation, we can send a job to Openness. Openness does its transcription work, sends the actual text the transcription back. Does translation too. Does the transcription back to us as a metadata file, XML, and then we can actually map it against the file in Flow. So that's all automatically. So you send the file, it comes back, done. In the file, you'll notice Chris is showing us it's got markers. Normally it breaks it up into sentences or gaps, and then you can use that metadata to bring it into Premiere or other NLEs, and you can search on the text, and you can use programs that do script-based editing as well to put your cut together. Okay, there's also object recognition software called Mobius, which is amazing. If you ever go to their website, have a look at what they can do with logging your footage for you. It's quite amazing. Okay, right, we're nearly there. Okay, so all this stuff's good, Chris, but my editors just don't want to log, and they're pretty hopeless at naming anything. They just want to work. So, how are we going to handle all this? So, there's a degree of production that it gets complex, and workers are coming in shifts. They're working on many projects at the same time. They might be working on a particular program one day, but then on a different program the next day. So you really need to, first of all, lock down the workflow. Secondly, look at file naming conventions so things don't basically go haywire, get lost. People do their own things. And then also some of the activities that the people might be doing might be sending the file somewhere. You may want to lock that down so that the files are getting encoded in the right codecs, pushed to the right places automatically. So if I was an editor, I prefer not to have to worry about all that.
Yep.
So that's why we integrate with this product called Helmet. Helmet, especially suited to Adobe workflows. In fact, I think it's the key. Using Adobe, it's supported by Premiere, After Effects,
And Audition.
and Audition.
Yep.
What it's doing is at a click of a button, it's running a series of tasks in the background. So these are predefined.
That's right. So look, my display is a bit busier because I'm a local admin. So an end user will probably just find a project already there for them to open, so they won't see quite as much as I'm seeing here.
So this is a template that's been made up for the demo.
That's correct. So the administrator or someone will have given this a name, or it auto-created. We have different groups, and so users can be assigned to groups or for different teams.
That would be particular types of production.
Yes.
Is that correct?
And then I have a category within that group. So I've got a couple here.
Different times a day.
Could be different templates,
shows.
Different lengths, different category, I guess. And then we have different templates. So it's all template driven. So you create a template, you set all the parameters on that, your sequence properties, and all that. And then that template is what we use for the basis of redistributing and creating new projects. So if I was to go through on this, I get the option here to create Premiere, After Effects, or Audition. I'm just going to create a Premiere.
Just a Premiere one's fine, thanks.
Now what I've got going in the background too is I just turn on the debugging. I'm going to come back to that in a sec. So how you would normally, you would log on, you would see your work for the day or work that you are working on, and you just click on here and open that up.
It's a one click.
One click does it all.
In the background, there's a whole lot of steps going on. What are they?
Well, this is all very simple what mine's done, but I've just created some bins. I've created 3 sequences with different properties, and if we have a look at what actually occurred, you can see all these different tasks as it goes off and creates it. It could be copying media into certain locations, maybe all your branding or straps or stuff that's the same for every project will have already been imported into your bins. So we can see here each of the tasks that it's doing as part of the stream.
So the main thing is it's basically setting up the work environment. For instance, in this case, the bin structure, the folder structures, or whatever the naming convention's been set. So nobody has to go down there. And if anybody's used, I guess in Premiere, there is a lot of places that you may need things configured for you to start with, and this does it all based on the house templates.
So
I think that's it. I think quickly show us the stream.
I'll just drill into a stream here so you can see what's sort of going on.
At the back end again, this is the back end, so you don't have to learn this. I'm not going to give you a test later, but in the back end, the way that we put these together is there's a consultation with the workflow requirements. It's designed up and then it's tested. And then our customers can learn how to do this as well, so they can actually then modify or create their own workflows.
And you can see it's fairly self-explanatory. It looks kind of complicated, but when you've got the debugging running and you can see what each action is doing, we're checking if the file exists. We're doing a project file copy action. This may be copying media from a central location for this particular job, creating folders. We create JSON files and XML files that describe what the stream and project's doing. So you normally don't have to get into that too deep. But
so that's Helmet, and it's particularly good for larger productions, lots of workers, lots of users, complex like reality shows.
We want a uniform kind of.
Large projects. I think we've sort of covered that.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, last one. Last one is, we've sort of covered this, but we do get asked a lot now is how do we edit in the cloud? Simple as that, they've got team members, they're working remotely, and they come to us. So we've sort of answered that question again. So I just want to give you the big picture though. All the things that we've just shown you, we can put in the cloud. Storage, asset management, automation, Helmet. So that's the point, is that all of this workflow can be moved to the cloud. So even if you can't do that sort of workflow now, I'm sure in about 5 years, if you're not already using some sort of cloud solution, you're going to be using some part of it in your workflow, whether it be just for archive or some sort of hybrid remote workflow. And probably within the next 8 years, maybe by 2030, the prediction is that the majority of workflows will be based around the cloud. Because I think at the moment we're all struggling a little bit to understand the total cost of ownership of our on-premise hardware, but when we work it out, we'll probably see that by 2030 or even earlier, that the cloud wins on total cost of ownership. So that was sort of the point I was just going to say. And then we mentioned earlier that EditShare partners with AWS in this region. So I know that some people in this room already work with AWS. We deploy on your account. We don't rent it back to you. We use AWS clients' accounts to deploy our solutions on. That's probably all we wanted to say right now without getting into your demo.
Yep.
We were going to have, I think Mark wanted to have some questions before we then move into the remote workflow. Or not?
Yes. So thank you very much, Chris and Paul. That was great. If you wanted to submit some extra questions, by all means, but are there any, or yell out. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to raise from the audience?
So it's all SaaS or cloud installation, no on-premise installation.
The question is it all on cloud SaaS, or can it be on premise as well?
Well, yeah, definitely we can do on-premise. Are you talking about on software only? The whole solution could be cloud, or we can have it all on-premise, or we can do a combination. Okay, so the combination would be, it might be something like you have a storage server in Sydney, one in Brisbane, and then you use asset management with Flow in the cloud, connecting to both. That's an example. It might be as simple as connect to a cloud to archive, to push files and pull files for your archive. Or it could be as complex as let's move everything to the cloud, and the storage, the asset management with the proxy manufacturer, the transcription with automation, remote workers working on virtual desktops to workstations in the cloud. So it's really, the sky's the limit. It's about designing the best way to suit the workflow requirements and probably the geographic requirements too, or the factors of geography also dictate some of the designs. Tomas, did you want to comment? No? Good.
And can you install the workflow engine Flow on-premise?
Can
Yes,
you
absolutely.
Sorry, I'll just repeat that. Can you install Flow on premise as
Absolutely.
well? Yeah.
Yeah, we do that all the time. Now, normally it would go with one of our servers. So just say you already have storage, we'd probably still put it with a small EditShare storage server and Flow. We did at one stage market some software only, but we just found our clients always needed the pro services to make it work. It wasn't, as a software tool, it wasn't not a great market decision. So we've gone back to, if you want just Flow, we can do that, but it's on one of our storage servers, smallest one. It'll work out about the same price anyway. Or you can have storage Flow on premise.
If I may add just one thing, maybe the microphone back for a moment. Migrating to the cloud from on-premise we find is a journey, right? And we started off, my very first cloud POC that we did was with Amazon Prime, and we worked on a very prestigious tennis tournament, captured in Europe, then recorded into an AWS data center, and then highlights packages were created in
California.
LA, and then with Premiere, by the way, and then the play out happened from the UK, so it was a very complex workflow. But I think the majority of our business is really on-prem at the moment, and we believe cloud is the future, and we do have some cloud deployments, but it's not all about the cloud just yet.
No.
Everybody has a different pace, everybody has different requirements, so you can start with on-prem and you can step by step migrate to the cloud. That's all good.
Thanks.
We might move along.
Yeah, sure.
From there are a couple of questions online, but we'll wait till the next break and we'll We'll come back to those. So I think we wanted to
I'll move off, get out of the way.
Introduce Chris and our patient John Barry from his boat in Victoria.
So, like I said before, all that presentation was just run on virtual machines on this machine here. So I'm just talking, communicating with myself here. What I'm going to do now is connect to our AWS instance we have running in Singapore.
So what let John do his little...
Sure.
Press his screen on the projector so that we see the AWS console.
Are you, John?
Yep.
Are you going to do your, do you want to do your, you're on screen at the moment, your presentation.
Okay. Cool.
Do you want to do that and I will go and get the AWS stuff running while you're...
No worries. You get all that in the background and I'll do my little spiel.
Okay, do your spiel.
Alrighty. Well, thanks everybody for attending. Those who have been able to come to Sydney and sit in person. I wish I was there, but unfortunately that was not an opportunity I could take advantage of at this point in time. So it kind of worked out, I guess, fortuitous in that we're trying to present this exact kind of workflow where we are remote and we're using Premiere Pro in a very flexible way. And so I wanted to start with this particular slide that shows just Australian content, and it's all recognizable brands, and the gold framed titles that are on this page have been winners or nominated during 2021 across multiple spaces. Some of them are ACTA, some of them are Audience Choice Awards at Tribeca last year. And there's a broad spectrum of the kind of content that has been created using Premiere Pro. Across the mid-bottom section there, I've got a few different names and different roles there of people. They've all spoken last year at different events as guest speakers using Premiere Pro in the real world. PostLab.io have been using it for their feature work, and they've been supporting productions-based workflows, which we'll go into a bit later, and then some feature editors and some TV editors. So across the very bottom there, again, more recognizable production companies and brands that I work with very closely as well. And this is just a tip of the iceberg, not the entire spectrum. So what I wanted to focus my section on was two different areas of workflow types. And this is about centralizing the way that you work, but having that flexibility as well. And you'll see what I mean once we go through the demonstrations. The first thing I wanted to walk through is team projects. And Chris and I will be utilizing this flexible cloud-centric collaboration and project management platform that is part of the Creative Cloud. And then we'll go into Premiere Pro Productions, which is structured to work with on-premise, and it's for long form and collaboration for really big projects that can start to really grow and grow and grow and become a really big single project file size, but they are designed to be able to cross-reference each other and share the load and split up the data that's required per project. You get a smaller data size, so when you launch and save that particular project, whatever its focus is, that's all it needs to worry about. And again, this will probably make a lot more sense once we see it in play. So what is team projects? It's cloud synchronized project data that happens inside the Adobe Creative Cloud, and its primary use case is for collaboration and controlling versioning backups as well. Now, this is included in Premiere Pro. Nothing that I'm showing today is any extra cost. It is, for want of a better word, in the box. We don't do boxes anymore, haven't done for some time. So I guess the right term would be native. It's native to the product and there's no extra cost associated. You're still using Premiere Pro as you would, but there's all these extra options. Project and file management. So before we look at what team projects does, I wanted to propose the kind of problems that I suppose many of us have come accustomed to, where this is just the way it is. If you're working with someone who's remote, there's a project file that, let's say, an assistant is using and the main editor is using, and there'll be this exchange of project files, and versioning, end of day versions get saved, and then there's got to be copies of those, and that can start to get a little bit messy when you want to consolidate the workload of an assistant and then the editor, and then try to find, this is our new master version. We've consolidated all those different edits. And especially if you're working between a Mac system and a Windows system, you're going to find link media issues popping up all the time, not just because of the volume versus the drive letter state, but even the slashes go the wrong way if you're looking at the file path system itself. And there's a media asset, sort of media management, I should say, component to the way that Team Projects has been designed to just resolve that for you. So if you have the same folder structure and you're in the background just refreshing and updating the assets that are in use, then it will just automatically connect to them because it understands relative pathing based on that way that it's been designed inside of Team Projects. And I like to call this nightmare of a scenario asset management mayhem. And so that really goes away when we start using Team Projects. In this diagram, I've got just two editors in play, and that's the role that we'll be demonstrating today between Chris and I. Chris will be playing the role of the main editor who's assisting and preparing the content. He has access to the central storage, and he also has access to proxies as well as the high res in that format. And he will be making his decisions on what's happening when he's in a team project, and the blue dots represent the transactions. So each time he makes a change, that's actually an auto-saved point in time under his ID. And until he shares his changes, I can't get the changes, which becomes a completely new version. And then I can hook up to Flow in this case, where I'm just using proxies. I can make all the decisions I need to make as the craft editor, and then I can send back changes, which then will be received by the edit assist, and it will all just reconnect back to where it started. So exports will be using full source material, and we're not locked into having to work with source material and or the proxies. It's very flexible, and you'll see what we mean when we start demonstrating. And when you want to add collaborators, there's a panel that is on the left there, and you can just add in the Adobe ID to send off the invitation. You will see how that works with Chris. And scaling your production many hands light work is as simple as adding people in like that. And again, they can be working either on-premise or remote and just working with proxies. It's up to you. You can slice and dice this whichever way that you like. It's a very flexible platform. And what's really handy about it is that the way that these blue dots as transactional backups and the get and share changes red line there is set up, you can go back and look at versions that were shared and start to peel back some of the work that's been done. There's the odd occasion where you start doing work and realize that you've overcooked a particular sequence and someone wasn't there to create a duplicate. So now you need to go back to a previous version, take that sequence that was a better cut, and then populate that back into the latest version. And you can do that through the media browser. Again, we will demonstrate this, so hopefully this all makes more sense. Okay, so we're going to move on to the demo side, which means we'll go back to Chris, and he will pick up from the project, the standard project that he began with, and he will convert that into a team project. You can create a team project on its own, which will be blank, but it's also that flexible that you could start with a project that you've already begun with and convert it to a team project. And then when you're done, you can actually convert the team project back to a standard Premiere project file as well.
So just reinforcing where we're at, this is my all-in-one node. So this is my EFS storage, EFSV storage. And this is my workstation, which I'll be connecting to using Teradici. It's PC over IP. And that is this machine here. Okay, so I'm working like I'm on-prem, even though I'm up in the cloud. I have access to the high res using EditShare Connect. I'm mapped, because I'm now on Windows, I've mapped with drive letters to these particular media spaces. And I'm just going to finish off where we got to last time, which is I'd created a Airflow project, and I pulled together a bit of a cuts list, and I'm going to import that into my craft editor as just a project. This is just going to bring in the media, again, high res and proxy, and it's going to assemble it on my timeline in the same order as the Airflow project. So from here, this is where we got to last time, I'm going to change this, and I'm going to go and edit team project, and I'm going to convert this project, which is this is the standard project, into a team project. I'm going to say we're going to do a save, that's fine. And now I'm going to add collaborators. So let me add John, and I'll send him an invite. And I'll close that, and OK that. It's on its way, John.
Thank you.
And then I will
get you to share the changes that it has.
Yep, so it's just finishing off the conversion. Right, so I've updated that, and you see now I've got this, my marker here is to share my changes back up to the Creative Cloud for John to get access to. So I will do that and share. And now we will switch to John's display, and we watch how he joins the project and imports, or joins the project. Yep, you're up.
Yep.
We can see you.
Okay, so I've got Premiere Pro open, but I can also see up in the top here my Creative Cloud icon, and there was a big red dot there indicating that something has popped up in notifications, or there's an update. When I look at the bell, I can see there that I've been invited to our TV show 2. So that's the name of our second session today. The first one was our TV show. I could accept from here, and I could turn on all the notifications settings, so then I get something that pops up on the screen over the top of whatever I'm working on at the time, but that indication pops up there. I'm actually going to show you a second way that you could accept those invitations as well, because again, flexibility. While I'm here in the home page, I can go down to the Open Team Project button and then look at my Invites tab. And did I accidentally accept it? I think I might have accidentally accepted it. Oh, maybe not. All right. Well, usually you'll see it in there as well, and then you can go to accept. Let me just make sure that I've got that bad boy going. So let's accept it from here. And once that's finished, we'll let this populate into here. Alrighty, that's interesting. It worked this morning flawlessly. All right, let's try and close that and see if I can get that to go again. Another way you can go in is File, Open Team Project. Now, why is that not going? Interesting. All right, maybe I'll close Premiere because, you know, software's not always perfect, is it? It's showing me here that it hasn't fully connected to the cloud. Let me just good old quit and restart that. You got to love a live demo. Okay, let's try that one more time. Open Team Project. Still doesn't look like it's popped in. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Now it's in. Okay. My phone, by the way, I'm using my phone to do this, and it's 4G, not 5G. So let's go in and open this up, and we'll see how it's just confirming everything in the background and make sure that the data of the project from the cloud is coming down, and it's got any connections of files that it checks to see, have I already loaded these files somewhere? And in this case, I haven't. And we're deliberately showing you this because I'm not connected to a T drive. I'm on a different operating system. It's not Windows. And I don't have access to either the proxies or the full res files. I'll just cancel that for now and let the project open up with all the placeholders. So if I open the sequence, I can see what Chris has done and provided to me, but obviously my files are all offline. What's really cool about this is that that panel that's open, when I use the EditShare panel inside of Premiere Pro, I can ask it to relink, check what's going on inside of this particular clip, and then it will offer me options on what I need to download. Now I'm on, like I said, 4G. It's not the greatest connection. I don't want to have the full res. So I'm going to ask EditShare to serve down to me and cache locally just the proxies. So let's just see how quick that can start to populate. And there we go. I've already got them all hooked up now. So I'm able to continue doing the craft work remotely while I'm only using proxies. Now, just to reiterate what was shown earlier to do with clip properties, the way that Premiere Pro handles proxy workflows is a little bit different to other NLEs. When Chris showed the properties, because his system can connect to the source files, the first layer of the metadata of the properties is going to check for the source data. For me, it's offline, but I can still work because the secondary state is for proxy media, and I do have a connection to it. So when I make my edits and I hand this back over to Chris, you'll see that everything that I do in here will update for him, and he won't be asked anything. He will not get a request to connect to anything because his system will remember that it already has been connected to those files before. So just to make sure that this looks completely different, I'm just going to make a picture-in-picture. And let's see here, just pop that into the top right. Okay, awesome. So now what would normally happen if we're using standard projects, I'd have to find my PROJ file, I'd have to maybe email it or find another way to then share it. And then he's got to open it and he's going to have to do a few different things. So with team projects, that problem goes away because I can use my share changes option. It's tracked everything that I've touched in here that's actually changed since the last time it was shared. So I'm going to add a comment in here. Session 2 Arvo. Hit share. And we'll see how quickly, this should only take a few seconds really, in order to push that data up into the cloud. And then we'll go back to check Chris's screen. And Chris, I can see you actually just got a little pop-up on your screen, but we've probably missed that. Sharing it to everybody else.
Yes, yeah, it didn't show.
That's all right.
Okay, so now I can get the latest changes. We can have a look at this. And here we have John's latest edit.
So that was really just a matter of seconds. I am in Melbourne. You guys are in Sydney. The Creative Cloud is kind of everywhere. But then the rest of the infrastructure that's underneath the EditShare experience is in Singapore. So this is a very robust, flexible way to actually do this sort of work.
Yeah. I've added a marker. Do you want me to send this back to you, John?
Yep, if you want, you can send back that marker and then I'll get the update and see what it is that's going on.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, and I've already got that update there to show that something's changed. There's a couple other things that are going on as well. We're always trying to make sure that our users are getting feedback. I'll just confirm that you're seeing my screen now.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, like I mentioned at the very beginning, I've got this big red dot on top of my Creative Cloud icon. It now tells me, if I look at that and refresh it, it shows that there's changes in the team project and then the name of the team project. And if I look at the sequence, because I have got it open at the same time, I now have an icon sitting next to the name of the sequence, which is a bright yellow orange color of an arrow pointing down. If I click on it, I can then see the Adobe ID for the user that is being used now by Chris, which is EditShare pre-sales. And it's made changes that have been shared. So I have to download and get those changes. The other thing that indicates something's going on is that the Get Latest Changes icon has lit up. I can continue to work if I wanted to, but in this case, I want to get the changes where he put a marker inside that sequence. And now my sequence is refreshed and I can see that he's got pip start as the name in that comment marker there. So this is very, very quick, very flexible way of being able to exchange between two collaborators. You can add more if you wanted to add another person. There is a shortcut icon here in the team project panel where you just, again, type in another name and it's all based on the Adobe ID. It's really important that the Adobe ID is understood the way that it works because that's how it's tracking the changes, the transactional changes for each user. So if I wanted to, by all technicalities, I could close this particular laptop, go somewhere else, jump on a Windows-based machine, log in with my ID, open the team project, and it will pick up exactly where I left off. I haven't executed any saves. In fact, you cannot. File save is grayed out. There's no way to make changes to it. The only way that you share the changes to someone else that's part of the collaboration team is that you actively share it with the icon down the bottom there. And any transactions I'm doing on my own, I'm playing in my own sandbox, it's tracking it and it's actually doing an update to a database locally, and then it's pushing it into the cloud under my ID. So how do we see that? Because you can see it. And I mentioned before that you're able to roll back the versions as well. So the tab Media Browser is where most users would come in and connect to the drives that they have access to that are mounted, and then they can sample content. You can go through and look at, scrub through selects that you might want to bring in. But we also have access to the Creative Cloud and the team projects themselves. So here you can see I have, over many years now, done a lot of demos around team projects. And I'm just going to filter down the word to, spelt with a double O, and jump into this. So what we're looking at now is a live updated view of the last share. So let's have a look here. Actually, we're going down a few items there. So notice on the right, I've actually got a set of notches, and on top of that, I've got what you can see, version 3 of 4, then a date timestamp, then the user's name, and then whatever comment might have been put into the comment section when shared. So this one says session 2 Arvo. If there were certain processes that have been completed and you share because it's now ready for the next step, you can put comments in there that help you. If you needed to go back, you then know which of these shared versions is the correct one to work with. So this, as I mentioned, it's working on each shared point. So when I first was invited, there was nothing shared to me. So the view of the project itself is blank for me. And then when it was shared, for me, I didn't have a connection yet. I had to go and use EditShare's tool in order to make that connection. Then it's been connected, so on and so forth. So that's under the versions of sharing. In the diagram, that's that red line. which means others can then see and update the changes that have been shared out. In the autosaves sub-tab, you'll notice that there's a lot more little notches, and that's each transactional save. And if I roll all the way down, you'll see that what actually happens when I was going through and reconnecting the media and downloading caches, it's actually, it did 2 clips at the same time. That's pretty funny. Usually it does it 1 at a time. But I can go up and now that 3rd clip has been populated and so on and so forth. So all of the different cuts that I was making and trims and the picture-in-picture and all that sort of stuff is going on through there. So what I might do then is just show you, I can open this in the source monitor and check it before I want to bring in the content. Okay, and it looks like, okay, so that's before I made it a pip. You can see that it's sitting on top, but it's actually not a picture-in-picture just yet, because that was another action after that. So I can see this, I can sample. If I really wanted to, I could create an in and out range, and then I could just pull down from there as a locked copy of that sequence and populate it into my current sequence as part of my current version of the team project. Very flexible. Everything is managed for you. And like I said before, everything that's happening is happening and being saved locally first, then pushed to the cloud. So if you were temporarily disconnected, you can continue working and you won't notice any difference. And once you've just in the background reconnected to the cloud, then all that content changes will be sent back up into the cloud. All right. Now that's pretty much the demo of the way that team projects works. Are there any questions on team projects before I move to productions? They are 2 different use cases, different ways of working.
There was one question, John, that someone submitted remotely. It says,
Okay.
hi guys, when you shared changes, I noticed that you added a comment before sharing. Is that comment visible on either end of the reference? And I think we did see that in the demo, but it might be worthwhile.
Just when you're scrolling down the sort of timeline down the right-hand side, the comments will appear there.
Yes, it shows up as you hover over the top. So I'll move from autosaves, which is that transactional save under my ID, and go back to where I've actively shared the change for someone else to get an updated version of the work. And if I scroll down over the top of another one, you'll see that in this little pop-up box, comment at the moment doesn't have anything in there really. It's just user shared the changes. But if I go up, I can now see there it's actually created that session to Arvo comment at the bottom of that little thing, which is what I put in. You don't have to put one in. It's up to you. It's up to the way that you want to come up with your own methodology around the way that you want to track the kind of work that you're doing. And it just means that if you do need to go back into previous versions, you've just got another way of being able to confirm you're in the right place or you're close to the right place before you open up to a sequence in order to see what's happening or repopulate a bin that's been deleted or a clip that's been removed from a version as well. So you can basically go back and just bring back anything from the past, but it's all contained inside of the media browser experience.
And those comments are available at both for Chris and for John as they share backwards and forwards. It's part of the data that's being shared backwards and forwards.
Correct. So anyone who's part of the team project can use the media browser to go back and check that information.
Okay.
I have a question as well about conflict resolution. If Chris and John are working at the same time and then uploading perhaps conflicting commands or actions, then what happens?
So John,
I did hear that question.
Actually. You did? Okay,
can,
excellent.
Yep.
The question's about
conflict
resolution. Yeah.
Excellent. In the current version of team projects, there is a possibility of having conflicts. There's a couple ways that you can resolve them. You can ignore it, knowing that you need to deal with it, because you've got two different blueprints trying to build on the same site, let's say. And so what you can do then is make a duplicate of the sequence, give it its own name so it has a separate identity, and then you can resolve afterwards to say, well, cancel the one that I'm trying to sync. I've got my own fresh copy now. Or you can decide, kill mine, take theirs, kill theirs, take mine. There's a few options, but very soon there will be a next gen version of this where the sequence will be locked. And so there will only be one person who has control of a sequence at a time, and that conflict issue completely goes away. That's coming soon. I can't give you a date as to when. That is coming very soon.
Okay, we have another question from them.
Yeah, if one of the collaborators is sitting down on the audio studio and doing the music on Logic or Pro Tools, can they take the tracks and put it up on the audio and collaborate?
The question is, what happens if
that one?
if someone is producing the music on Pro Tools or another audio tool, can they then incorporate them into the tracks within Premiere?
Absolutely, the same as you would if it was a standard Premiere project. Same, all the tools and functionality of the way that a team project works as a user experience is exactly the same as a standard project. It's just the project data that's being synchronized, merged, and version controlled inside the Adobe Creative Cloud. But you could do any of your imports or exports out to, let's say, XML. In this case, let me just go and highlight the sequence. You could punch out to an EDL, XML, Avid Log Exchange as well. And you can have that actually go out to wherever you need it to go. And you can bring things in the same as you would if you were working with a standard Premiere project.
Okay, I think we need to move on to the next bit, if that's okay, John, and we'll see
Yep,
if we've got a bit more
no
time
problem.
at the end for a few more questions.
Thanks for those questions. Very good. All right, let's move on to productions. So what is productions? If any one of you are familiar with the shared projects workflow in Avid Media Composer, it is basically structured around a very similar approach. It is cross-referencing, in our case, shared projects. In the Avid world, you'd say a bin. Our folders are our bins. And so the terminology can get a little bit confusing. But basically, you have a separate project to do a separate piece of work, and you can have a dedicated project just for sequences. The actual assets, the clips that are being used in the sequence are actually cross-referenced in a separate project. And when we brought out productions, the main thing was that we brought out a new panel called the production panel. And the production panel looks into what's happening at the storage level of the cluster of projects. When you create a new production, there's a specific folder structure that gets created and ways that then it understands how to cross-reference the projects that are part of that production. In this case, the production name is Movie Time, and then inside of that, it's got subfolders that have been created to then create another management layer to move projects from one stage to the next. So you can see if we look at the edits folder and look inside of that, we've got Final Cut Aspect, and then the project is locked under Mr. Edit, and then it's got a file size, and then we've got Final Cut Matted, and that's opened by a user called Mike Burton, and another file size. If you were to take all the different file sizes and all the different split out projects here, and you were to merge that all into one project, that's where you get a very heavy lifting, heavy to open, heavy to save project file once you start going into really big, complex projects. And we're talking TV series, we're talking multi-episodal stuff. You want to access all of the materials even though you're punching out separate episodes. So this is the concept of working with productions. It's for large scale, large format productions. And by splitting out the load, it means that the opening and saving of each project within its specific use case of why it's being used is much faster. To give you a sense of how this works when you are working collaboratively, there is a lock file, a PR lock file, that is a sidecar associated with files that are opened up. So when a project is opened, this sidecar is also created next to that project. We can see in the bottom right corner there, we've got Final Cut matted PR lock and the Final Cut matted PR PROJ file. When they're side by side, whoever it is that got into that first, in this case, it's Mike Burton, a separate user to the screenshot. The current user of the screenshot is Mr. Edit. And if you look in the top right, you can see that there's a couple different changes to the icons. When it's white and filled, it's opened somewhere. When it's got the green pencil, it's in write mode for that user, which would be you. When it's got a padlock, it's locked by someone else. Someone else has it open. You can see though that padlock as well is a hollow icon with the red padlock, meaning that I don't also have it open. I can have it open and it be locked. And then when it's not opened by anyone and there's no owner, then you've got a outline of the icon and then no project locked name there either. So you can manage these states very quickly, and everyone who's part of the central storage, which is a requirement for making this work, excuse me, let's have some water. The central storage is critical for the way that this actually works. That doesn't mean that the central storage needs to be in play for the access of the clips, but managing the projects, they must be inside the same main folder structure, which in the bottom right, again, movie time is going to be that main folder structure, because there's certain production presets that are centralized there, and every project that is created or imported and becomes part of the cross-referencing is going to be using the same production settings. Okay, this will make more sense once we start to show how it works. I've lost my mouse, there we go. Quick example of a customer that I worked with last year. Stump Jump's the production company. They've got a set of TV shows that they put together. I think in this case, the Chasing Zephyr show and the Cuba episode, I got a call from them saying, oh, look, our project file it just takes forever. It takes like 20 minutes to open. We're working on a laptop, but surely, you know, there's something, what can we do? It doesn't seem right. And it's taking almost as long to save again. Now, the original project file size was 583.5 megabytes. That's probably the biggest, almost one of the biggest project files I've ever seen. They had everything in there, all the raw footage, all the work in progress, sequences. They hadn't managed any of that. It just was basically from the beginning to the end with no version save as version project as they were working. The Premiere project file format is proprietary to Adobe, but it is actually a zip of raw data. If you put a .zip at the end of the name and then unzip it, you will see what the real uncompressed data actually is, the file size. And that's what's happening there when you open a project. It has to unzip all that raw data, present back all of the information, what's happening inside the project, and then it needs to, when you save, take all that raw information and then recompress it back down into the Premiere project file. So that's about a factor of 3 in the uncompressed versus the project size itself. After we started converting their project into productions, so they just picked up where they left off. They imported the project into a production and then started to split out what they were managing their bins for. So they had for dailies, they had titles, they had a bunch of different things that they were managing with master bins. That master bin name became a new project, and they were starting to split out the load and the file size of the overall project into multiple little projects. So by the time they were finished with their final edit, it ended up being 193.1 megabytes. When they tested again what that uncompressed file size was going to be, it was only 344.8, which is a difference of 1.3 gigabytes. That's a lot of data that it doesn't have to uncompress and recompress each time they open and save. So now I'm going to go into the demo side. Okay. I'm going to leave the team project open just to show that you can have Premiere projects of all types open. You have multiple projects open and multiple types of projects open. It's a very flexible software, and that's something that I want you to walk away with as well. So what I'm going to do, I've already created one. Mentioned earlier to do with Helmet. Helmet can actually pre-populate based on a template how to then build out a new production setup. It can take a little bit of time to set all the things up, but Helmet has a way of being able to populate that for you. So I'm just going to go and open a production, and it recalls anywhere that I may have set one up before. And you can see I've now got this floating panel for productions. I'll actually change the user interface in order to just make better use of the real estate. Okay, so over here I can see I've got nothing open yet. I've got multiple folders, and if I was to reveal this in the storage level on the Finder, I can see that I've got my dailies, import and convert, prepared assets, trash, etc., etc. And if I was to make any changes to this, let's say I changed that to day 2, you'll see that it's actually updated inside of Premiere's production panel as well, because it's a live view of what's happening between the two areas. As an editor, I don't want to have another panel open or another window open to see what's happening. I want to be able to see any updates going on inside of here. Now, if I was to open up day 2, I can see that I've got a bunch of clips in here. Just move this over to this side. I don't have any sequences though. So I've got sequences under a different project. If I move that, just cancel that for now. If I move that over to the other side, we can then see side by side, I've got clips handled in one project and I've got sequences handled in another. So this set of shots inside of this sequence in a standard project would have to be also inside the same project, but it's actually referencing this here. So I'll close this one down, and then I'll ask this clip, reveal in project. It finds exactly the project that it was associated to and highlights that shot for me. So if I know that I need to work with another take or some other content that's to do with that particular shot, that's how I go about and manage it. So instead of having multiple bins inside of one project panel, I'm splitting out the bins as separate projects and separate panels. I can dock them together and I can manage it the way that I want. But what's really cool is that you can see I've actually still got EditShare open, so I could still go in here and start looking up shots. I think Boca is the name of a particular shot in here somewhere. Oh, not under there. Maybe I've spelt it incorrectly. No. But I can go in and I can start populating from here as well. And so there's a way that all of this starts to cohesively work together too. So basically, if I wanted to change the right permissions, so someone else can pick this up, I can change the icon down the bottom left corner of each project panel to be in a locked state. And even though here I've got it open, it's white and solid, someone else can open it, they take control, they can make changes, save the changes, and then I can refresh it. I can actually populate my own sequences with locked project content as well. So there's a lot of mechanisms here that are very similar to what you might be familiar with elsewhere. Very easy, very flexible. And to move things around, you just basically move around where you want things to be. So for example, I could just grab these shots and just move them over to here. There's no duplicates. It just moves, and you've only got one copy of the things that you're working with across the entire stack of projects that are part of this one production. And we are coming close on time, so that's the basics of this. We can go in and talk to you about your specific needs and requirements. This has been in use for quite some time through some major customers in Australia, so it's robust. It's definitely out there, and if you've got any questions, we can certainly talk to you later on about your details. But are there any specific questions about what I've just shown? People might be a bit curious.
I don't think we have any productions specific external questions, John, for you.
Okay,
Is
great.
there anything from the room? Any additional questions?
Is this the exact present form of the Adobe? It is inclusive in the project now?
So the question is?
Is it EditShare is already added version in the Adobe, or it is a separate now?
Is the EditShare panel and stuff directly part of the Adobe Premiere software as it comes? So maybe you can answer that, Chris.
No, so normally you get access to the panel when you have the EditShare storage. So when you go land on the landing page for EditShare, if we go back to here, you'll see that this is where you can access the flow panel, and we have it for Windows. Yeah, and it's a panel both for Premiere and Resolve.
So it's something you add to the application once you have your EditShare storage.
That's right. It wouldn't be of a lot use to you if you didn't have access to the flow side of things, because that's what it's talking to.
Any other questions from the audience here today? Let's just do a last check, see if any came in externally that we haven't gone. No. Okay. Chris and John.
Put John up.
Any final words, John, or we?
No, not specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're curious about knowing more, come to Digistore and they'll capture information about what it is you want to do, and then we'll work together. We're partners in this. Your success is our success.
Thanks, John. Thank you,
Awesome.
Chris.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Okay, thank you for that. Let me move on to my screen if we can now. Okay, thank you all for joining our event today, both in person and remotely. I hope you've enjoyed the event. A big thank you to our presenters, Tamesh, John, Paul and Chris today. Well done for everybody. Digistore's contact details once more are on the screen. We are your central contact point for all of this technology, so if you have any questions at all, you need to implement any of these, or even just talk through your specific workflows or applications, please don't hesitate to contact us. We have drinks and nibblies in the foyer here for those that are here today, so please, we'll be around, stay around, enjoy a drink, have something to eat. We'd love to chat to you and spend some time with you. But for now, thank you everyone. As I mentioned, this event was recorded and we'll be emailing a link of the recording to all registrants in the coming days. Thanks again. We'll now end the stream and the recording and hopefully catch up with you for a drink. Thank you.